Evening. Thanks for coming out on this very hot day. I'm Brian, and welcome to the Chocolate Conundrum, Big Insights from Small Data. So, one day a few months ago, wouldn't have been today, it would have just been a load of chocolate liquid on the floor. I walked into the local co-op and I found myself in the chocolate bar section. I found myself drawn to one column of shelves more than any other, and that was this one. Maybe. It struck me for various reasons. It seemed to be highly ordered and neatly arranged in a way that separated the different types of bars depending on what you might be in the mood for. Some of the different features of the chocolate bars seem fairly obvious on first glance. The brand and type seem to be stacked close together, for example. The more expensive bars, such as green and black, were on the top shelves, and the less expensive bars, such as Aero, were on the lower shelves. The cocoa percentage was emphasised more as a selling feature of the bars further up the shelves. Would I see similar patterns in another supermarket? I walk into Tesco, and I find this. Again, the more luxurious bars were at the top, and the quick chocolate fix bars were nearer the bottom. However, some of the features of the chocolate bars were less obvious. There was definitely more to this, more than I could put my finger on. If we looked into these features, would it reveal something about how the shelves were arranged? I collected some data on the various chocolate bars, including supermarket, brand, name, type, i.e. whether it's milk, dairy or dark chocolate, cocoa percentage and ingredients, and from this I created a table of data, which looks like this. But first of all, I wanted to investigate how the cocoa content varies from shelf to shelf. So let's see what happens when we plot the data on a heat map. So this is what happens in the co-op. So this shows which shelf and position each chocolate bar is stacked in the co-op. So we've got the shelf number goes up from row 1 to row 7 on the left, and position goes from column 1 to column 11 on the right. Each cell in the heat map is coloured according to the cocoa percentage, with the darker cells showing a higher cocoa content. We see quite clearly that there are some patterns. The bars on shelf 7 at the top are more likely to be higher in cocoa. Now let's have a look at the Tesco data. And again, we see that the bars which are higher in cocoa are more likely to be stacked on the left and nearer the top shelves. What happens if we average out the features by brand and plot them on some charts? When we plot bar charts of the cocoa percentage by brand, bar charts along the bottom, we see that in both supermarkets, green and black and the own brand products are the highest in cocoa. Scatter charts also seem to reveal some similarities. Both supermarkets seeming to have similar brands with chocolate bars containing more cocoa on the shelves nearer the top. Now, I'd like to have a look at the price. This is the same heat map as before, only this time it's for price. Darker the cells, the higher, the more expensive the chocolate bars are. And as we can see, this is the co-op data. And the bars up the top and to the left are indeed more expensive than the ones on the lower shelf. This is price per 100 grams because the weight of each chocolate bar does vary. In the co-op, in the Tesco, it seems to be the same sort of thing. More expensive bars on the top and to the left. How do our charts look now? We look at just the price. I can see that in both supermarkets, green and black, Godiva and Lindt are the more expensive on average, while Aero and Galaxy are cheaper. If we look at the scatter charts, there is a very similar correlation in price and shelf. To me, it looks like there's two clusters in each, so let's try an R-based custom visualization on clustering to see if that comes up with anything. Let's go with two clusters. Keep it nice and simple. In the co-op, we can see quite clearly there are two clusters for both cocoa and price, which seem to suggest that there's something different about the chocolate bars which are on shelves 6 and 7 to the rest. If we look at the Tesco two cluster R analyses, we see that the clusters on shelves 5, 6 and 7 are somehow distinct from those on the lower shelves. Now let's have a look at these scatter and bar charts again. But before we do, I'll just say that these cluster analyses, these two, that one's pointed to the top 2 shelves in the Co-op, and that one's pointed to the top 3 shelves in the Tesco. I will now reveal that there is indeed a mystery feature which applies to the chocolate bars on the top 3 shelves in Tesco's and the top 2 shelves in the Co-op. But you probably haven't guessed what it is, and if you have guessed what it is, I need to keep quiet just for now, please. If we look at the, so let's call this mystery feature, it's either going to be A or it's going to be B. If we look at the Cocoa by the chocolate bars with by brand, but this is with mystery feature A, we can see quite clearly that in the Co-op, they're all on the top 2 shelves, and in the Tesco, they're all on the top 3 shelves. If we look at feature B instead, then they are on the lower shelves, and they are lower in Cocoa as well. And if we look at the price, there seems to be exactly the same thing. The bars on the top 2 shelves in the Co-op and the top 3 shelves in the Tesco also have this mystery feature A. However, those with mystery feature B are not on the top shelves, and they are generally less expensive, especially Molly's, which is 30p from Tesco. There we are. So, what was it about this? What is the mystery feature? Let's go back to the first image of the chocolate bars in the Co-op. What do you see? The chocolate bars on the top 2 shelves seem to be marketed as more luxurious items and seem to have dreamier packaging with nice logos on them. The logos look like they're more likely to be typed and they're more expensive. What happens if we were to just look at the packaging of each and how they are roughly stacked? Would that reveal anything? Can anyone spot it now? What about if we take the packaging away? There it is. The chocolate bars on the top 2 shelves are in portrait, and all the rest are in landscape. And what about in Tesco's? There you go, just to reassure. What about in Tesco's? The top 3 shelves are in portrait, and the lower ones are in landscape. So, there you go. It's exactly the same thing. Well, what does this all mean? Let's have a look at the difference in price. In the Co-op, a chocolate bar with landscape packaging sells on average for £1.19 per 100 grams, whereas a portrait chocolate bar sells on average for £1.97 per 100 grams. That's 66% more expensive than the landscape ones. Meanwhile, in Tesco, a landscape chocolate bar sells for an average of 82 pence per 100 gram. That's probably brought down by the Molly's ones. Whereas the portrait ones sell for an average of £1.54, which is 88% higher than the landscape ones. Now, why could this all be? What is all this about? Well, I think one explanation, it could be that it has something to do with where your eyes are when you shop. If your eyes are somewhere around shelf 6, it will be easy for you to read the text on the packaging in front of you, above you, and slightly below you, and you'll be able to see the bigger text on the items which are stacked on the lower shelves, which also have shelves in the way. Does this type of marketing apply to other products in the supermarket? Well, let's see. Okay, now, let's have a look at this picture. And I want you to imagine that each of the boxes in the pictures contains breakfast cereals. Which one do you think has the Weetabix in? Anyone? The yellow one. We all agreed it's the yellow one? Yeah. I'm so sorry. No, Crunchy Nut Cornflakes are now sold in landscape. Weetabix Crispy Minis are now sold in portrait. And if you think that's mad, have a look at that. The world has gone absolutely crackers. Anyway, what about other things in everyday life? Books are sold in portrait. But when you open them up, their orientation becomes landscape. Usually, that is. This diagram shows 6 people sitting around a table. Where do the important people sit? At the end, of course. The people shown as green circles interact with the rectangle in portrait, while the others interact with it in landscape. What else? Birthday cards are nearly always sent in landscape envelopes. Important documents, on the other hand, are more likely to be in portrait. It's really obvious. It might say important on it, but you know it's important. Look what way round it is. And what's the most important thing that you own? Probably this. Now, your passport is in portrait, yet the most important details in it are on a page which is in landscape. Well, how does this apply to other aspects of everyday life? Well, let's have a think. If someone's holding a mobile phone like this, what do you think they're doing? FaceTime? Or possibly reading the news? Yeah. And what about if they're looking at their phone like that? Entertainment, videos, and games. Yeah. So, games, yeah, that's certainly true. Where does this all go? Well, I think this goes a long way. And this is only scratching at the surface. It's hugely important that as data scientists, we are able to zoom in to data and segment it in order to see trends and find useful insight. It's also hugely important to be able to zoom out and imagine we'd never seen the whole picture. That way, we might see things we'd never spotted before, even if they've been staring us in the face the whole time. Thank you.